Do you think that anybody even noticed that we didn't put out an episode last week?
I hope so. It's kind of fucked up.
Right? We really screwed the pooch up last week on not getting out an episode. And I'm realizing that as we get closer and closer to our move back to the States date, is what I'll call it, I feel like time is just the amount of time we have is like getting smaller and smaller, like to fit all the things.
Well, you have a good excuse, though. You did go to Luxembourg, right?
I did.
And that's why we weren't able to record.
So, also, I don't know if I told you this, but I took what do you call it? I did a social media cleanse, but I also didn't formally announce it like some people do. I just totally dipped off social media. I
didn't know you were supposed to do that.
A lot of people do. They're like, you should give us a public service announcement. I'm like, listen, I'm a real kind of bitch. Like, I will just dip the fuck off and not tell anybody. But
yeah. Well, actually, when I broke my phone a couple weeks ago and I didn't have a phone for a week, not gonna lie, it was kind of peaceful.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I was like, yeah, this is nice. This is nice.
See, I don't even break my phone.
To the whole social media thing too much.
My point being was that because I went to Luxembourg, I had to go. So you guys, it's another Monday with Abe and I. We're back. We have our shit together this week. So the thing is that I went on a business trip last week, had to go to Luxembourg. For those of you who don't know, that is a different country. And there was just no way that we were going to be able to get out an episode. We didn't plan. We had poor planning. So we missed you guys. And it throws my week off, when we don't get to podcast. Does it throw your week off? It makes me sad.
No.
I came back from that trip and I was just like, oh my God, I just want to put out an episode. I just want to put out an episode. I just want to put out an episode. And Abe was like, it's not going to happen. Let it go. And I thought it was going to break out into a Frozen chorus. But the thing is we only have so much time to do so many things. So it's not that you guys aren't a priority.
I don't like recording midweek.
Yeah, Abe has all these rules. And I'm like, what?
Well, I play soccer Tuesdays and Thursdays, all right, and then Call of Duty Friday.
You know that's a true story, though. Call of Duty's Friday nights.
Maybe.
So, did I mention already that I did a social media cleanse? Did I say that? I couldn't remember if I did, but I did a social media cleanse, and the reason why I did it last week was because I was gone and I missed you guys and I didn't want to have FOMO. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to turn off the phone, turn off from social media. And it was a nice break. And now I'm back. So I hope if you guys follow me on Instagram, you're ready for all my bullshit because I miss talking to everybody. So last time we recorded, we were talking about you being straight out of Stockton and what that was like. I love it when I feel like as many times as I've heard your story, I've never heard it like that from start to beginning. And I got a little teary-eyed whenever we were recording last time.
What?
I got teary-eyed hearing your story because to me, I think it's incredible because the whole point of the podcast, right, is to promote inclusivity and diversity. So for me, coming from Texas, I don't hear stories like that from growing up in North Texas. I just never experienced having someone have a story like that. So I think it's great. I think your story shows a lot of leadership skills that obviously run in your family.
Well, honestly, I'm not going to lie. It's not until maybe I became older where I started realizing that my parents were, there was other people that were immigrants You know, I honestly thought I was like in the whole struggle by myself, you know.
You thought you were like the only kid on the island with immigrant parents.
Pretty much, yeah. So, and then like you start meeting other people and like their families and stuff like that, and like interacting more with people that you know, and you're like, oh dang, like you're just like me, you know. So, and then yeah, my school, I mean, it was diverse, but it was like there wasn't a lot of necessarily people with my specific circumstance. It was a smaller like school, like elementary school with, you know, my specific circumstance that like of people I could relate to, you know, in that aspect. So
Did you feel like, yeah, so do you think you carried that throughout like junior high and high school? Like, I can't relate to anybody here. Like, they don't understand.
Nah. Like, once I got into high school, there's a lot more people to interact with. So, yeah, it's totally different. But, yeah, different and the same. Yeah.
Just thinking. So, tell us about your Air Force story, and where did we leave off? Like, you went to basic, and did you tell us about basic? I think you did, yeah.
Basic,
you graduated.
Basic. It's everything that, you know, you want to. It's not like the movies, but then it is like the movies, and now. And by it's not like Full Metal Jacket basic training, but it is pretty. I mean, it's strict in the sense, right? And there's like a lot of like stress and things like that going on, but it's nothing. I mean, you're not going to like Navy SEAL, you know, BUDS training or something like that. Like, you're not doing that, you know. But yeah, it's different. It's just stressful, which honestly was kind of. My upbringing kind of prepared me for that.
What part of your upbringing do you think prepared you for it, though? Like, go into details.
Just the stress. Just the stress, pretty much. Like, you always kind of have somebody, like, you're always cleaning. So, you know, growing up, I always had to clean the house, get up early, clean the house, you know, do, like, you know, laborious work around the house, and then your mom yelling at you the whole time and stuff like that. So nothing's necessarily given to you. You have to earn everything, and that's kind of like the same aspect of basic training. Like, you know, do clean the kitchen, and, you know, and my mom would come behind me and like start yelling at me and shit like that. You know, so it's kind of when I did go to basic, I was like, it's like the same. It was like, you know, if I don't do this right, there's a lot of accountability, pretty much. So, yeah.
Was there anything that you experienced in basic where you were like, I didn't think it was going to be like this? Whether it was like too hard, too easy, or like maybe you saw some crazy shit.
We actually did have a guy, which they're supposed to like, you know, something crazy that kind of happened where I was like, oh, dang. And it was kind of like the first taste of like, I didn't really have a lot of people that were like mentally not correct in my life, you know, for the most part. I think just because like my family, you know, just tries to be very stoic and like, you know, hard work and persevere and stuff like that. Maybe they just mask things really well. I don't know. But I went to in basic, there was a guy that got like washed back. Pretty much they can keep you longer time in basic training if you're not meeting the standards. He got, and they call that washing back, and he got like held back into our flight because they stagger him out, right? Like the the flights it's like the groups of people. And this kid started pretty much he came in and he was kind of like going crazy. So you have to like post up a little watch at night, and you take shifts and stuff like that. And everybody does it like every other day or something like that, right? You have like shifts when you post up. Anyway, this I went into the bathroom, right? And I had my little flashlight, and this guy was like in the mirror, like slapping himself. And he was like, "Why did you do this to yourself? Why did you do this to yourself?" Right? And I was just like, "Oh shit, this dude lost it," you know. And I was like, "Let me get out of here, because I don't know this dude like that, and this is a dangerous situation. Like, this dude's obviously mentally unstable." So we put in a little report, and then after that, like they took him away, pretty much, and then like they sent him off into like a medical holding facility and like to be reevaluated and stuff like that. But usually, for the most part, everybody was fine. I mean, it's like kind of stressful, but it just goes to show like not everybody that comes in the military is like, you know, mentally healthy. You know, like they do all these tests and stuff like that to try to screen people and try to deter people away that they feel like aren't gonna necessarily keep up with the stress of the military. But obviously, it's not a perfect system, and you get people coming in that you know suffer from some sort of mental illness. That was this guy. He ended up obviously getting, like, I wouldn't say kicked out, but medically separated from the Air Force, and that was it. So that was like probably one of the crazier things that I saw in basic training, you know?
Yeah, that's pretty intense. When you saw that, were you like, this is one of those moments where you're like, what's the word I'm thinking of? It's like a flight or fight in you, right? Like when you're in that type of training environment and you're like, I have everything weighing on me and I have to keep my shit together in order to make it to the other side, or I'm going to lose everything that I'm aiming towards right now.
Is that how it was for you?
So, yeah. Like I felt like every day was like, just keep your shit together. But for me, like when you said just now, you were like, having people yell at me was like, oh, wait, like, oh, okay. Like, you know, it's just a form of like preparation for BMT. Like there were a lot of things that I probably like experienced like that during BMT where I was like, oh, I've been prepped for this. Like I lived, you know, my life like this training environment. So once 6 weeks, because that's how old I am, that when I went to...
I went through the 8-week one.
Exactly.
Anyway, so...
What were other things, though? I want to go back to that. What were other things that you feel like you experienced prior to joining that prepped you, whether it was mentally or physically? Maybe even if you want to throw the word emotionally in there.
I just think I had a lot to lose, pretty much. Like, there's a lot of, like, I guess, pride that kind of goes into it, you know? And you're not, at least me, you're trying to do well, you know? And you want to do well enough to not get kicked out, like, at any stage of this, right? Like, and it's like a rigorous process. It's like pass your ASVAB test, you score high enough, you know, go see the recruiter, get medically cleared. If there's anything wrong with you that, you know, circumstances that you can't control, like, you know, you have flat feet or, you know, have asthma or certain things like that. And those are like disqualifying factors, you know. So you get not just getting to the door, like to basic, you're like, damn, like I already went through this like whole process, this 6-month wait time to get into the Air Force, to do all this stuff, and then to join, right? And then like, I don't want to get washed back. I don't want to lose my shit, you know. I want to pass every test. I want to, because people get people don't make it through basic, you know. They're like, all right, you know, you couldn't because you do a lot of academic stuff in basic, but you couldn't hack it academically, you couldn't hack it physically, and for the most part, they try to work with you. But there's a point where, they're just like, all right, we got to kind of cut our losses now as like kind of like an enterprise. They look at it and they're like, this is not going to be a good investment for us, because ultimately that's what you are. You're kind of like a huge investment.
You are. Do you know how, sorry to interrupt, but do you know how much each airman cost in training? Do you remember what they told you the figure was?
I remember it was like something outrageous.
Yeah. But you're right. Like you
it is
are
a lot
an
of
investment.
Money. Yeah. They do spend a lot of money on you to get you to that point, even just to the whole tech school. And then even going into tech school, I think we kind of talked about it, and it's like a little kind of college environment, college campus type thing. You get a little dorm and a roommate and such, and you get to go out, and people from your town, where you're from, Wichita Falls, you get in your little blues, and they call you nerd because you're in your blues and shit like that, so
I don't know what you're talking about.
You were probably one of those people that were shouting like loser,
Like if anyone,
as we got dropped off by the bus or something like that.
I have stories about that, but later.
Anyway, so and even just making it academically, like there's a lot to lose, especially when you don't have much. I don't know, like you don't want to go back to Stockton, right? You're like, I got out of here, I'm successful, I'm doing something, and then for you to mess it all up by not putting in work and things like that, like kind of crazy. You're making a stupid mistake in tech school or in like the little college environment of like almost equate it to losing your scholarship. Like you could do something very minute, very small, and lose your scholarship. Like you get arrested, or like you get in a fight while you're drinking or something like that. Same thing. And it's that same aspect, that same mentality. Like those small things will cost you your whole pretty much beginning of your career, your whole opportunity. So yeah.
But not to say it in a way that you put people down who go to college, but
No.
Not what you said, but what I'm about to say. But I'm like, you say it, and I'm like, but getting kicked out of college on a scholarship and getting kicked out of the military, I feel like those are two different kids, Like in two completely different situations.
You can get kicked out of college and get accepted into another one and rebound it, and it never goes on your record. You can get kicked out of the military, and they're forever going to ask you why it is you got kicked out of the military,
Yeah, definitely.
It's almost like it's almost like a criminal record. It's an identifier that you're not a trustworthy or not a responsible individual. It's almost like the ultimate test. So, and there's a lot of rewards to it. Like you can, if you make the cut or you pass the test, you get veterans benefits, which like give you a huge advantage in life, huge stepping stone, benefits for college, all that stuff, discounts, all that. Or you can do the wrong thing and you can lose your almost like your social credibility. So yeah.
Do you think would you say that fear drove you?
A lot of it is fear, yeah.
Through basic and tech school, like fear of doing the wrong thing, fear of failing academically, physically.
Somebody once told me, and I don't know if I believe this anymore, but I mean, it does carry a lot of like kind of truth in it. Like people are pretty motivated by fear and money. So like fear of failure, things like that, and then like money, like.
Can I ask?
Intrinsic value.
Did you have a backup plan if you had to go home?
No, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't.
Or were you like, no, I'm all fucking in?
No, I was all
this
in.
This has to work.
It has to work.
There is no way
that's why you join like active duty, versus reserve. So you're just like, I'm going in this full force. Like, this is going to be my plan for the next 4 or 6 years, whatever contract you do. And reserve, yeah, you kind of do have like a backup plan. You have to like reintegrate back into normal life. And like, it's almost like you just take a break and then come back. But like active duty military, you're just like, I'm gone. I'm leaving for 4 years, sell my stuff, like sell my car, everything. I'm going off, and for me, I landed in my first base was New Jersey.
And tell us what that was like when you got orders and you saw McGuire.
Honestly, I didn't even know where Jersey was.
Me neither.
I had no clue. Yeah, you were stationed there too, right? But
did you know it was? But you knew it was on the East Coast.
No, like kinda. You got to remember too. Like,
you're bad at geography too. I love it.
So prior to joining the military, the first flight I ever took in my life was to San Antonio to go to Air Force boot camp. Pretty much, that was my first flight ever. So I wasn't necessarily. I look back at that time now, and I'm like, man, that's how. I wouldn't say small-minded, but like how much had some blinders on. Like I didn't see outside of California at that age, and I wasn't necessarily looking to go visit Jersey. It was always a dream of mine to visit New York, but I didn't even know where Jersey was. I knew California, Texas, New York, Florida, and like Nevada. Outside of that, I couldn't really tell you anything about any other state, and that's only because the states are the most popular and or they bordered California. That's it. But I had no clue about anything outside, probably California, which is kind of scary.
I think it's scary now for you looking back and realizing how much you just didn't know and how much you've grown since then. And you're like, oh, I haven't always been like this. It's like a reminder. Like, don't forget where you came from.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So, I mean, like now we're like, how can we get to our 23rd country? Like we're like trying to get a world map and like mark down the countries and like figure out what more countries we could see and like put on our bucket list. And I'm like, man, that's crazy that, 10 years ago, I think it's now 12, I'm going on my 12th year in the Air Force, right? I'm like, man, who would have known that I would be outside of California? Like I never would have thought I would have done all these, like, I say amazing things that I've done. So
you have.
And that, yeah, the military, the Air Force is kind of afforded me that. And I'm not saying this once again because I'm going to go into recruiting. This is really how I feel. But, yeah, obviously there's a lot of pros and cons to it. But got stationed in Jersey and I was in tech school in your hometown, which is weird, right? Because you're from Wichita Falls, and that's where I was at tech school at. So when I talk to like your parents and stuff like that, I'm like, I know where this is at. They're like, yeah, like that's we speak the same lingo, and I'm like, that's weird. Like I lived there for like 6 months of my life, or 6-7 months of my life, and then to go back and now
you have like a foundation with them or something to conversate with them about.
Well, now we go back to Wichita Falls, not for the military, like to visit family. Like it's weird,
You are so lucky.
I like Wichita Falls.
No, you don't.
It's fun. So, yeah, Jersey, the Jersey Shore, all that stuff. Got stationed there. It was a culture shock. It was a shock walking into the Air Force in that time to
Can I just say though, so at that point, once you go from basic military training, like your whole environment changes. Like you're just so used to like this training, this very strict regiment that you're on, right? An environment, and it's like living in an alternate reality. Like there's no signs of a world on the outside. And then I feel like they just throw you into tech school, and then you're like, oh shit, like, like I don't have to stand at parade rest and all these things, right?
So
And
that's
then-
like military.
Training school.
No, I'm trying to tell our listeners what parade rest is, but
Oh.
yeah, it's like it's pretty much like a what is it?
What would you call it?
that?
A position
A position, yeah,
that you
standing
stand in.
position.
Yeah, like a standing position. Like,
Yeah,
so you go from like all these like military type things to you're in a more relaxed environment. Like think of yourself, like Abe said, like you're in college. Like literally, that's what it felt like I went through. And for me, and so, but thinking about you, like you go from that for like, I can't even imagine going to, if I was in tech school for 7 months, God bless.
I was only there for that long also because I went during Christmas and then they paused it. They had like this thing called Exodus, just like college, right? Where like they shut down class and then you go home and then you come back. So like it tacked on more time to me being there, and then I had to spend time just kind of like in limbo when my class started, and then I had to spend more time when I had to leave. So I was just like sweeping like the halls. Like
I thought that was
like
great.
doing
You didn't like being on it. So they call it, wait, can we tell them about that? So if you have to wait before you go to your training school, then they put you on like, you're like cleanup crew, but they call it like details. I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. You didn't like it?
boring,
You're like, this
dude.
is a waste of my time.
Yeah. It's like
That's how you know, like, we're so different.
it's like, well, they're like, it's like you join the Air Force, right? You're like, I'm gonna do all these amazing things and like go work on a jet or like, be in some sort of combat situation or, be deployed or be working on a part of like a huge project or mission, and they're like, sweep the hall. And you're like, okay.
You're like 5 days in, like, chill out, dude.
Well, that was my expectation. I was like, okay, like after this, like hopefully I get deployed. Hopefully I do something that's worth my time, worth my, that helps me grow. And then it's like, go sweep the halls. And I'm just like, I could have done this in Stockton,
You're
like,
getting paid. That's, you know what?
It's not about that. It's not about that. If it was about getting paid, then I would have done something else in Stockton. You know what I'm saying? Like that would have
But
gave
those
me more money.
benefits,
You know what's funny about that is before I went to boot camp, I forgot to talk about this. My mom was like, "You're not going to college, but you got to do something. So you got to go to work." So she hooked me up with this job at this place called like OG Packing, and it's pretty much like a felon reintegration program.
oh my God.
A felon reintegration program that like work release program type thing. So there's like all these like, mafioso, fucking gangbanger, people out of prison, still gangbanging, shit like that, selling drugs. And the job was like working in a freezer packaging cherries. So that from the cherry field. And my mom was like, you better do something. And I was like, fuck. So she got me that job. So here I am packing cherries with literally like a bunch of felons. But honestly, those were like the coolest type of dudes I've ever met. And while I was there, they kind of put a lot of things in perspective. I know I talked about like how to go through all this like stuff, these like, what is it? These courses, these decision making courses. After that, I was at this job where there's all these people off these like felon work release programs. So it was like almost like a fast forward, like these kids are in juvie, you're in juvie, and now you're watching these like felons in this like work release program. Like this definitely could be you. Like this could be you here, and this could be you here at this stage in your life.
You're like on a spiritual journey. They're like,
Kinda.
Is this where you want to be?
Yeah. So, and then there's like a bunch of young guys too, just like me, right? But you're talking to them, and you're like, how did you get here? And they're just like, I'm on this. They tell you what they did and like how much time they served and all this shit, and you're just like, fuck, like this is intense, man. And then I'm like, yeah, I'm joining the Air Force, and they're like, tease you about it and shit like that. But then they're like, that's good. Like, I wish I would have done that. When I was, younger, I wish I would have had a good, head on my shoulders. I wish somebody would have told me to do this or that. And they just put it into perspective. But at the same time, here's what I was trying to get at is I was getting paid a lot of money to actually do this. So
Was it hard work?
it was hard work, but it was like mindless work, like literally mindless work. Like it was like sweeping the warehouse. It was like packing these boxes of cherries on top of each other. Like take the box literally off the conveyor belt and you put it on a pallet. Do that. Keep doing that, right? Then you send it off, like you wrap it and send it off in a truck. Literally the most easy and mindless work that you'll probably ever do. And you're in this like freezer. It's like 30-degree freezer. Anyway, so I was getting paid really well to do this. And you're working like 12, 13, 14 hours, right? You're getting overtime and all this stuff. So when I joined the military, I was actually like getting paid. My checks were so small, in comparison to this mindless work that I was, getting paid to do, but I was getting paid really well, like it was never about like the money. It was just about the journey, the experience, doing something more worthwhile and shit like that, because if I wanted to make more money, I would just stay there and do mindless work in Stockton, So no, I did not like sweeping the halls. You know what I'm saying? Like I felt like it was.
I disagree, but okay.
It went against everything that I was trying to do. And even to this day, like I don't like doing mindless work. I will, but I'm like, how is this challenging me? Like this not.
I have to be passionate about what I'm doing, or I won't do it.
And sweeping the halls is passionate for you?
When you are 19 and you're like, I fucking did it. This is my vacation.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah. I guess if it's like vacation or something like that, but it gets old. And,
I wasn't
it's almost
signing
like that.
up to do it for 20 years, Abe.
Oh, I know. But it's that mentality, at least for me, it's like when you're young and you're just like, I can't wait to grow up. It's almost like that. Like, I can't wait to get into the real Air Force. So I was just like, I'm done with like this waiting around and sweeping halls.
But speaking of that, so they call it, so you go from that's what I was trying to get to, and we went off on this huge tangent.
Okay.
You go from the BMT to tech school to now you're in what they call the operational Air Force, which you just said, like the real Air Force. Were you nervous? Or were you like, what were your thoughts as you were on the plane going to New Jersey?
You know what? They kind of, I feel like tech school and basic, they do a good job of like snapping you back into, whipping you into like a productive member of society and the Air Force, where you're like a little bit less of a knucklehead. Like you start to think things a little bit more strategically, start to plan things, start to look at things from a different aspect in detail. With that being said, I had a sponsor, right? And every base that you get to has like a sponsor. pretty much, right? And for those of us that aren't in the Air Force, and this guy's like whole job, he has this, like he's your job that you're doing, but his whole job is to pretty much guide you through the Air Force. My sponsor did not. So this fucking guy did. And later on, like, we ended up being good friends. But at the time, I was so pissed off. Like, got to my first base, right? He's not telling me anything. He calls me like a day before. I actually went home to California to visit my family. Now I'm going to Philadelphia, right? So I'm flying into Philly International Airport, PHI. And I'm getting a text message from my guy that's supposed to pick me up at the airport. And mind you, the Air Force Base is like 40 to 50 minutes away from Philly, right? Mm-hmm. And he's like, hey, sorry, bro, I'm not going to make it. Got tied up. Take a cab. And I was like, what the fuck? I was like, what?
Oh, my God. That's
and
the worst.
This guy was like my only lifeline getting to base and like knowing people at my base. So it's just like, imagine just landing in a new city. You don't know anybody in that city, and you're supposed to get to a place the next day to report to somebody, right? And they're just like, can't pick you up, find your way to base. And I'm like, okay. So you don't have anybody to call else. So I was just like, okay.
And you guys, there's no Ubers back then.
Yeah. So I'm in this and
You didn't even have a smartphone.
Yeah. No, I did.
What kind of phone did you have?
I don't know. But it was janky. It wasn't an iPhone yet. It was a smartphone. Anyway, so I go up to a taxi driver and I'm like, hey, how much to get me to base? Guy's like, $200. And I'm like,
oh, shit.
You know, because it's Philly. They're going to get me. I'm a 19-year-old kid trying to get to an Air Force base, looking fucking scared and lost, right? So I'm like, damn, I don't want to pay $200. I'm already low in my funds because I blew them on California. Like, this is not going to be smart, to do. So I look around and I see like another guy with a suitcase throwing his stuff in his car, and he kind of sees me looking lost, and he's like, hey, you. And I'm like, hey, what's up? And he's like, are you in the Air Force? And I'm like, yes. And I'm like, yes. And he's like, are you going to McGuire? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, do you want to ride? And I'm like, ooh, this is sketchy, And I'm like, are you sure you're in the Air Force? And he's like, I promise you. He shows me his cat card, all this stuff. And I was like, okay. This is weird.
How scary.
Yeah. I was like, this is fucking weird. Intense. And he's like, I promise you, I know this is weird, but do you want to ride or not? I was supposed to pick up this guy, and like I drove all the way out here, and somebody canceled on me, so now I'm here, and I'm in Philly, and I'm supposed to pick up this guy, and I didn't. So I was like, okay, sure. And I just get in this car with this random guy, and he starts driving me to base because he lives also by base. And good guy. I don't even know who this guy is to this day. But
wow.
Yeah, he was just an airman like me, just there, just trying to be helpful. Drives me back, and I tell him my situation, like, yeah, my guy sponsored or canceled on me, and it's like 11 o'clock at night or something like that, right? And he pulls up and he's like, man, this is bullshit. Fuck that. I want to talk to this motherfucker, right? So I'm like, man, please don't. Like, I'm trying to make a good impression at my work, I'm thinking that in my head. Because I'm young. Now I would say that shit, like, don't do that. Anyway, so he gets out. We pull up to the base. We get there, and I'm, like, in awe because we're, like, passing by, like, Eagle Stadium and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, dang, like, I'm really out here. I'm really doing it, And, like, you see Philly in the background. And I'm like, I'm really here. So.
Was it a proud moment?
Kind of, yeah. And it was, like, weird because I'm just in this random guy's car. And he's like, where do you work? What do you do? And I was like, okay, whatever. I actually think he was LRS. I think he was supply. Anyway, he had like this red Audi. Anyway, so.
Red Audi.
Anyway, so and it was like clean ride. So I was like, oh, dang, that's cool. Anyway, so I keep saying anyway, so he gets out of the car. he sees like my sponsor or whatever that's like waiting for me at the gate. He was just being a lazy bitch, and he wanted me to like to pay the money, right? And yeah, like he didn't want to drive all the way out there. He was like, "You're gonna get reimbursed, so just pay it. I'm not gonna get reimbursed for this gas." So I was like, "Oh,
It's called being a good fucking human."
yeah, yeah." So, anyway, so he chews him out. They have words. They get into argument, and then he picks me up. And again, being the great sponsor he is, he like drives me to the hotel, right, on base. And he's like, "All right, man, this is your room. Do you need anything?" And I needed like everything. Like there was nothing in the room. It was like a little hotel room. Like there was no food, anything. I was starving. He's like, "All right, later." And I'm like, hey, wait. What do I do tomorrow? Like, where do I go? Who do I talk to? And he's like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, we work by this building over here. There's smokestacks, huge smokestacks in the air. You follow those. That's where we work." And I was like, "Wait, what?" And I was like, you got a number?" And he's like, "Don't worry about it. And he leaves, right? And I was just like, "What the fuck?" And I was like, "What is going on?"
What was his rank?
It was like airman, same thing, right?
Wow. Okay, keep going.
So
I'm getting heated.
So this is one of many of like predicaments that I've been in, right? But it just goes to show you just have to be flexible, right? So you're just like, it's on me to get done. Like it's not on this guy, it's on me. So at least that's my mentality. So anyway, so I'm like super nervous. So I wake up like at like 4 a.m, right? Get dressed, get all nice, look all presentable in my uniform, right? And I take off walking because I want to get there early because I'm like, usually everybody starts work at 7. That's normal like duty hours for the Air Force. So I start walking, and I probably walked around base, and it's like miles and miles and miles. It's like huge base, right? You've been to it, right? You were there. And I probably walked around base for like 2 hours. Now it's like 6 o'clock, and I still haven't found the 2 smokestacks, right? So finally, I call the operator. Like I Google Ramstein, and I call somebody random, and I was like, "Hey, like I'm new. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, where do I go? I'm CE," and they're like, "Oh, you're CE. Just go into this general area and go into the first like building that you see." Like he gave me directions, and they'll know where to take you. And I was like, "Okay." So I do, and they're like, yeah, next building over. And like I go to the next building, like, yeah, next building over. And I'm like, okay. Finally, I find my building, knock on the door, and I'm like, they're like, "Hey," walk in. They're like, "Hey, you're the new guy." And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, "Am I not supposed to be here?" And they're like, yeah, you are, but we were going to come pick you up. And I was like, "Oh." I was like, "What time?" They're like, "I don't know. We were going to let you sleep in like until like 9 or something like that." And I was like, "Oh." Well, I didn't know that. Nobody told me that. They're like, "Okay, well, you're here now. So get to work." And that was like my first day into the operational Air Force.
I feel so bad. I don't fly with shit like that. Like, and I have these conversations now that I'm back in uniform full time all the time, where I'm like, "No, you need to do that again. No, you need to rethink that, because that's just not how shit should go down." Like, I don't know why I have to explain to people, like, when you're in uniform, you're supposed to take care of each other.
Yeah. And then like, Jersey and everything was like a ball. Philly, New York, commuting there and like doing that whole thing. Met some like awesome people there, you included. And that's it. It was a great time. Soon after that, went to Korea.
Did you deploy when you were in?
I did. I went to Disneyland.
What?
Yeah, and I went to Qatar.
Oh, I was like, what the
It's like the Disneyland of like air bases in a deployed environment.
Yes.
It's pretty nice.
And tell us why.
Because it has like 2 pools, awesome gym. There's like a bar there. It's
Okay.
It's great.
You're not
Just
giving up the
karaoke
details.
night.
So basically, when you're in the military and you get sent to, Qatar, when you get sent to Qatar, that is like Abe said, Disneyland, but it's also like a vacation spot. And people are like really envious when others get sent there because it's such a cakewalk compared to being in a environment where you're getting, bombed every day,
Mortared and stuff like that.
mortared, and
Now it's different. Now people don't want to go there because it's boring. It's just like going to any other Air Force base, and people want to go to, do the real Air Force stuff out there.
yeah. So, but it is nice because they allow you, which in a normal deployment, you're not allowed to leave unless it's your job to go off the base. But
yeah,
they
you go off to the base and
allow you to go
to the mall.
downtown.
Yep.
And have that whole experience.
Smoke hookah and like eat the food and like go to the resorts and be on the beach. It's dope.
Tell us 3 cool things that you enjoyed from Qatar, that you learned, that you saw, that you experienced.
The souks. So pretty much going down like to the older part of like Qatar. It's like very traditional, and then like they have.
What's a souk? Tell us what a souk is.
I don't really know.
It's a market.
Whatever. Anyway, so I just know that's what it's called, Courtney. I'm not that cultured. Anyway, so they have like hookah there and like restaurants you can eat at and little things, trinkets that you can buy that are like handmade, and it's cool, super cool. And then went to like go get like saltwater pearls. So it's right on the water. So like there's a bunch of like places you can get like saltwater pearls and like buy jewelry, and like you barter, and like you go back and forth with these people and for like a good price. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing would be, probably the resorts, like the super nice resorts on the beach and stuff like that. Like, yeah, that was like the cooler things that I think that I did. I didn't go like on the sand dunes or got to pet a camel. That was pretty cool. Yeah.
You pet a camel?
Yeah, I didn't want to get on that motherfucker, dude. I didn't trust it.
You didn't trust it?
You ever see their face? They're all like crooked and shit. You
Yeah.
know, the teeth all. You don't trust that thing.
Okay.
You don't.
So
get
you
on
didn't
that,
ride the camel.
That animal. No, hell no, dude. I was too afraid. That thing was gonna take off running.
You
I
were
didn't
like,
trust
I'm
it.
too Stockton for this.
No, I was just like, I know better. Like, you don't fuck with wild animals. Now I probably would, but like at the time,
Now
I was
you
like,
totally would.
yeah, I was like, no, yeah, that's a camel. I seen camels bite people.
Oh
They
my
spit.
God. Live a little.
This dude right here has this little beating stick. I know this camel's upset. I don't even trust this dude right here, So mainly it was more about that. And it's just like in a parking lot, and I was just like, nah.
It's in a
It was
parking
in a
lot.
parking lot. It was in a parking lot.
I'm thinking you're gonna like set the scene. You're like, we were in the Sahara Desert, which is probably not
Nope.
in Qatar or whatever
Nope,
the
it was
desert
like-
is called out there.
Parking lot. When I say parking lot, just like empty gravel lot, and then off to the corner, in the middle of the city, is like a camel in a little like plot of like small land, and it's just there. And there's this dude, and he's like, "You want to ride?" And I'm like, "Nah, that looks sketchy."
Yeah, that's a shabby situation. All right, so let me ask though, that was your first deployment that you went on. When you got to McGuire, were you nervous to deploy? Were you excited to deploy? And when
I actually didn't think I was going to deploy because I had been there because everybody was like, within 6 months you're going to deploy, but I had been there like a year, and I was like, I'm never deploying. And it was like bittersweet, when they were like, you're deploying. I was like, what? I am? And they're like, yep. And I was like, okay, cool. And it's just like really nonchalant, It's just like, yeah, you're going over here. Mm-hmm. So we're like, oh, okay, what do I do? And they're like, do all this stuff. And, it just doesn't hit you when you're like on the plane, and then you're getting off, and it's like in the middle of the night, and like you're getting off on the airfield, and like these Qatari people are like checking your custom stuff. Everything's like written in squiggles and like all sorts of stuff, and like you're just like, what the fuck is going on? You know, like where do I go? And like
that's another language. The squiggles.
It's Arabic. Everything's
like really.
It looked like squiggles to me. You know?
That's what was going through this airman's head.
I was just like, yep, I'm always squiggles right here. Anyway, so everything's written in Arabic, and I was just like, oh, dang, this is like the real deal right here. You know, like they have their military there, and, you know, you're just like, okay. You know, like they're going through all these rules. But yeah, I was like kind of sketched out, you know?
Wow,
I
really?
was like, what is going on?
Now,
what do I do?
Tell us how long you were there for.
6 months. Most Air Force deployments are like 6 months.
And tell us, was it difficult to be away from civilization that long? Or
yeah, you know, because you're in the desert, so there's like no grass, there's no shrubbery. And then like the base itself is like, you have your amenities, but like, it's almost like kind of coronavirus. Like, once you are told that you're like confined to a certain place and like you don't have certain luxuries, you're like, dang, like this is different. Like you don't have your own bathroom. Like you have to go to like it's almost like a campsite facility, like a camp bathroom, you know, like where it's like community restrooms and bathrooms where you do take care of your business everywhere. And it's like those small luxuries, and you're like living in a super small room, those small luxuries that like make you come back and you're just like, oh man, like this is pretty, like I'm glad we have these things, you know? So it's almost like being in prison but not being in prison. I don't want to like paint a super bad light about like deployments and like say they're horrible, because they're not, because it was like, it's a great time to me. It was like, it's a super fun time, you know? But
it is something that I think you have to be mentally fit to keep your momentum going.
Yeah, you create a lot of...
Everybody thrives off routines.
Routine and like, you know, camaraderie. You gotta like... You really have to like fuck with the people that you're like there with, or try to make the best out of like your situation that you're in, you know? So like a lot of good times out of it. Like you have a lot of good times out of it. You meet a lot of like cool ass people during most of your deployments, you know? I'm sure everybody could say that, so... Yeah.
For sure. Okay, so if living tips, give us like one tip that you're like, if I, you know, like, this is what you got to do when you deploy. Like, this is my tip to like make it better.
Work out.
Okay.
That's what I did. I just worked out, go to school, keep yourself busy. That's it. I mean, that's what everybody knows. Everybody does it.
Well, like, I mean, like a living tip, like to live a better life. Like,
put foil on your windows.
Okay, see? That's important. I didn't know that. And now I'm like, damn, should have done that.
What, putting the foil on your windows?
Yeah. I had a face mask.
It's hot.
When I deploy, I just need you guys to know.
It's like an oven in your room. You're in the middle of the desert.
That's
you
true.
might as well put the foil on the window, block it out with some cardboard. It's nice and cool in your room, you know what I'm saying?
I like that. But I want to add to it just real quick. So when I deploy, I have a memory foam pad that I take with me, and I have a goose feather pillow that I take with me, and I bring my own sheets, and I bring a face mask, and I bring a fan. Okay? Those are my tips that I'm sharing with you guys.
Just buy it.
No, you do not. You bring it, or you have it shipped, or you have it shipped from your favorite store, like top of the line shit. I'm talking like 1,000 thread count sheets, whatever a high thread count is.
Yes, small luxuries kind of get you by.
Yeah, and I had like this super nice face mask. I did not want to be fucked with. I was like, told my roommate, like, do not fuck with me. Like when I sleep, I'm going to sleep. I don't want to wake up. I don't want to know that I'm here. I want to lie to myself and tell myself that I'm in my bed, in my nice, cozy home, And once I like actually opened my eyes and I realized I'm still here, it's another story. But to me, like, that was shit that made my life so much better, was to be able to get into a bed that felt like my real bed. So I always like to share that with people because a lot of people don't do that. Don't play yourself. Get the memory foam mattress.
Okay.
Anyways, so anything else? So like you're like work out, put cardboard foil on your windows. And then I guess those were the only things that I was curious. Like if you, from your one time, you're like, this is what I learned. This is what I would have done different.
Yeah.
And then you went to guitar and that was it. And then you wrapped up your time at McGuire and you had the opportunity to go to Korea.
And not North Korea, because everybody keeps people that aren't in the military always ask me like, "You went to Korea? How was North Korea?" And I'm like, "No, dude, I didn't go to North Korea. I went to South Korea." Anyway, it's awesome. It was awesome. It was like the greatest time in my military career, honestly. Going to Korea, it was like, and it was only for a year. Met like an awesome group of friends. Most of who I like still keep in contact to this day. Got to go see Seoul. So Seoul is like an awesome city. Korean culture is awesome. Their food is great. It's very scenic. It's dope. It's just an all around good time. And then like the community out. I was at Kunsan Air Base. The community at like Kunsan Air Base is like legendary. So it's like built on tradition, built on like tradition from like Vietnam pretty much, right? You have like little bars, like every like work center has like their own little bar. So yeah, just imagine like if your work center had a bar, and every work center has one, and a really nice bar. It's like a pub, and it just goes back forever on this like pub. Like so many people have like gone and came through there, so much so that you almost have to do like it's called like a helling in. What is it called in college when you like join a frat? It's almost like joining a frat, pretty much.
I don't have the word off
Yeah.
the top of my head.
And they kind of like haze you. Hazing is not the right word, but you go through a series of like challenges, I'm gonna say, and then like after that you become like a part of your kind of like community. You get like a special coin, you get like a baseball jersey, and only members of like this certain squadron or like kind of group can like use this pub or go to this pub. And there's like all these like different rules about like going into this like pub or bar, like, and if you don't follow these rules, like you have to like pay for drinks or do certain things, right? And it's awesome time. Other than that, it's like a work hard, play hard type place. And yeah, it was freaking amazing. Like it was the most amazing time I pretty much had in my military career.
You think that's where you like really grew as an airman in your career?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It was awesome.
You think you grew more there than if you would have gone from like stateside to stateside?
Yes, just because being overseas is like a totally different mindset, work environment than just being and like interacting with the local populace, like in anywhere overseas. Like I think really like expands your paradigm pretty much, for sure. You're just like, oh, people live, like just even going to Seoul and like you overlook like Seoul, and like anywhere you stop in anywhere in Seoul and like look out in the city, and it's just like this huge metropolis, like ginormous city. I think at one point it was like the largest city in the world. This is like a place bigger than New York. And you're just like, damn, like people live here, like this is crazy. Like, and they have like a totally different way of life too.
Share with us. Give us more details.
They have like a work hard, play hard thing. Like, so
So that's the Korean culture.
Yeah, they love drinking. They love drinking. They love enjoying themselves, outside of work. There's all these like subcultures within like Korea or even Seoul. Like, I'm sure people have like heard of like Gundam, right? Like that center's like, very like luxurious, like very, it's nice, and then you have like Hongdae, which is like very like hip, like people are like beatboxing and like freestyling, like it's almost like New York in the 80s. It's like very hip hop esque, it's very artsy, and then yeah, just different places in Korea. Everybody likes to, when you eat, it's not uncommon to like drink a lot. It's like to have fun and like be there for a long time and interact. Like, it's awesome.
What's the weirdest thing that you ate while you were there?
These fried beetles.
Oh God.
Yeah, we went for a hike to this like Buddhist temple, I think, and there was like little vendors on the side, like if they were selling popcorn, but they were giving you these like little bugs, these little beetles, and they were like fried, but not in anything like dough. It was just like in oil, just like sauteed beetles, and with no salt, no nothing. And they put them in a little cone, and they're like, "Here you go, eat them."
It was just one beetle, or is like a lot?
A lot. It's like a bunch of them, bunch of little ones. Like little Tic Tacs. And you're just popping them in your mouth. Popping them in your mouth.
I don't like to be like all frou-frou or whatever the word is I'm looking for, but I can't fuck with that. I'm not even gonna lie.
Yeah, and then when I first got there, what I thought was weird was like the kimchi.
You thought kimchi was weird?
Yeah, I thought the pickled cabbage in like chili fish sauce was odd. Yeah, I was like, what the fuck is this? Shit nasty. But it's all right now. I still don't like it though.
I just feel like it's one of those acquired taste
Super
things.
acquired taste is fermented cabbage in fish oil. Anyway, so and then they have kind of the same thing. It's like fermented fish, small, like almost like minnows, like super small. You eat those too, kind of like really small sardines, super small, and you just kind of like toss those back as like a little like snack or appetizer. What else did I eat that was like super odd? I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay, and from Korea to Germany.
Yeah. I mean, and you've probably heard of all our adventures here, watch them. So now, yeah, we're here and we've been here for a long time.
I mean, you've been here for a long time.
I have. It's going to be 5 years.
Tell us what's your most memorable thing that you've done, whether it's work or a volunteer event, why you've been here in Germany?
Oh, like through work, for work?
Mm-hmm. But it has to be here in Germany.
In Germany.
Or like in the surrounding area.
Went to Belgium to honor... Man, there's so many. There's a lot. There's a lot of... No, I can't because it's kind of like classified, but...
Oh my God.
I'm not saying
like,
that.
can we cut that out? Like, why? He's like, I can't tell you, but I'm going to tell you that I can't tell you. I
shouldn't. If you ever see me, I'll tell you in person, but you can't just put it on air. Anyway, so for the sake of like, therefore, why are you shaking your head? I can't. I'm not supposed to.
Leave it out.
I'm not supposed to. Anyway, so I went through like a volunteer event. It was like it was really cool. I thought it was really cool, but we went to honor unmarked graves for 11 African American soldiers. So these 11 African American soldiers pretty much they it was like I think it was I think they were all a part of like an all African American unit that was fighting, and I guess they got overran, and this unit pretty much bugged out, and this was like in Belgium, right? Bugged out and started running. They got to like a little village, and they hunkered down in this like small village. They asked some of the village people for refuge. It was 11 of them, and they were like, "Yo, let me in. Like, they're gonna kill me. Can you help us out?" And like at the time, the people from Belgium, like, they're our allies, right? And they're in the war with us. But, these people were like, "No, I can't help you, dude. They're going to kill us. The Nazis are coming, like, kill us. We're trying to find you guys, and you guys definitely don't look like us, So that's a problem." So finally, this one specific house lets him in. And they're like, "Yeah, we'll hide you. You can stay here." And, like, they fed him and stuff like that. Eventually, the Nazis came, and they found him, right? And they're like, "Hey, give them up. If you don't give them up, obviously you guys are all dying." So these 11 soldiers were like, "All right, we're gonna go. Like, we're not trying to get you. We know we have, this is like kind of our thing, and we're not gonna try to rope you guys into it." So they go out, and eventually, like, they're killed, and they're killed in like a really brutal fashion. Not just by like getting like shot or anything like that, like they're getting like stabbed in the eye, they're getting stabbed to death, to the point where like they're still alive, as like they're kind of torturing these guys, and one of them like pretty much goes to the other soldier, like crawls to him as he's like dying, and like starts to comfort him, and like they end up dying. It's in the middle of winter, I forgot to say it's in the middle of winter, so they can't just like run off and hide and stuff like that. They have to stay there during the winter, or they're gonna die. But the snow came, and they left them there, and eventually the military came by, and they're like, "Hey, we're looking for soldiers." They're like, "Hey, the people at the village are like, we have these soldiers here. You need to come get them, take them back." And things were different in that time, so they were like, "Okay, yeah, we'll get to them," but priority for them was the white American soldiers first. So they do that, and they never got to these guys, and they left them there. The people of that village ended up making graves for them and honoring them for their kind of like their sacrifice that they made. And
Since our own people wouldn't.
yeah, and they made graves for him. And I had one of my supervisors at the time was kind of like in charge of like the Veterans Affairs for like the overseas thing. And he got wind of this, and he was like, "We need to go integrate them and pay their respects." So we went over there. We drove to Belgium, full service dress, right? Went out there for the ceremony, the 21 gunshot salute, and we did this whole like ceremony to honor them, and like the people from the village of the family were still there, and they still lived in that house. And there was an old lady there, and the grandmother, or the old lady that lived in the house, was a little girl there. So she remembers them coming by and everything, and like she remembers the whole situation, because I guess they ended up staying in the house for an extended period of time to ride out the winter until they were caught wind that they were housing, American soldiers in that village. But anyway, everybody got assigned a certain person, and we had like their life story and everything, right? Like on this like little card of who they were, and they were gonna call everybody. they called out the name like to do a roll call, right? And as like they say the name, you would turn and you would say not present or something like that, right? They say it three times, and then like not present. So did that for the 11 soldiers, right? And then like did their whole thing, how they're supposed to be like recognized, and it was kind of like I was just like really hit me hard. It's one of those things that I'll forever remember in my life. Soon after that, we the people were there, the village. We went down to the village, and this is like in Belgium, so it's like beautiful scenery, rolling hills, cows, everything, right? We went to they invited us back for a dinner. We ate with them, and they served us like the most amazing fries, the most amazing food, like all homemade food, homemade Belgian food. Gave us like unlimited drinks at the bar, some Chimay beer, like the Belgium beer, and and then we came back, or I think we went to a Montessori after that, and then we came back. But
and you guys did that for Veterans Day, right? That was on Veterans Day,
or a monastery. But yeah, we did that for Veterans Day. So that was one of the I felt like it was one of the cooler things that I did while living overseas.
And can you talk about, I know you already talked about Africa, but can you add to that?
Went to Africa to build a base. That's all I'm going to say. It's crazy. We're in the middle of the Sahara. Got a 1-day notice. Went out to Sahara, pretty much help reconstitute a base and start a whole base back up, and had no flight line. There was no airfield to land a plane. So pretty much how we got there, we were hopping around from different posts in Africa. And
tell us what your living conditions were like there. Were you in a...
I'll get to it.
Okay.
I'll get to it. Anyway, so to paint a picture, there's no airfield. And we roll up, and our mission is supposed to be we don't even know where we're going. We just know we're going to this little outpost, and we get into this little Defender, Land Rover Defender, drive out to a random airstrip. There's a G6 plane and then a Cessna, right? And we're like, oh dang, we're riding in style. We're getting in the G6, so we're all we're all we're ready to go. We're all strapped up, everything, right? And we're we're gonna ride in style. Hopefully they have champagne in this. I thought this was gonna be deployment type, and we started unloading our luggage, and they're like, no, not that plane, this plane. And they point at the Cessna, and it's the most rusty Cessna that you ever seen. And we're just what the hell? And the guy's like, hey, welcome. And we start throwing all our gear, and he's like, yeah, that's a lot of gear, And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, yeah, that's too much weight for this small plane. And I was like, okay, because it's there's 5 of us and all our gear. And he's writing stuff down, asking our weight, weighing our bags. And he's like, oh, no, this isn't good. It's a civilian guy, right? And he's in cargo pants, beard and all special forces out, whatever. And he's all he has on all his tactical stuff. So I'm like, oh, I guess this guy knows what he's doing, right? Mm-hmm. So he's like, all right, fuck it. We'll fill it up half a tank. And I'm like, half a tank? I'm like, what do you mean you're going to fill up half a tank on the plane? He's like, yeah, it's too much weight. And I was like, is half a tank going to get us to wherever we're going in Africa? And he's like, yeah, kind of. I don't know, we'll see. I never done the trip that far. And I was like, okay. And he pulls out these maps, right? And he's blowing, I swear, this is a movie. He's blowing the maps off with dust, right? And I'm like, what the hell? And the guy's like, don't worry about those. The sand dunes change all the time. Those are dated. we'll just fly off a compass. And I was just like,
Fly off a compass.
like, okay. All right, cool. So we do, and we get on the plane, or we're about to get on the plane, and the guy's like, all right, group picture. And I'm thinking, like, hey, this is a pretty cool guy, man. Like, kind of cool experience, right? And he's like, all right, small guys. He's like, you guys are my first. He gets in the middle. He's like, you guys are my first mission. And I was like, first mission? And he's like, yeah. He was like, this is my first mission ever. And I was like, no. And he was like,
Dun, dun, dun.
dun, dun, dun. Right. So we get on the plane. I fall asleep. The Cessna has like a little bench seat in the middle. We're all crammed in there. I forgot to bring water. I don't know why I didn't fill up my Camelback, and I didn't bring water bottles. So I'm in like the middle of the Sahara, and I'm thinking like, I'm gonna die. This plane goes down, I'm dead. I'm dying of thirst. I was like, that was stupid. So we're flying in the in the Cessna, right, forever, and we finally get to like, we see, and it's like, we're looking out the window. There's like camels and shit, right, and nomads, like all that stuff, right. And we get to pretty much like what it looks like, a road. And the guy's like, all right, ready? And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, let's go. And like, he does kind of like a combat dive down, just so we don't get like, if there's like any bad guys in the area, we don't get blown out of the sky, you know, like with an RPG. So he's like, and he's like coming down super fast. As we're going, there's planes crashed on the sides of this like janky piece of road, and I'm like, oh God, no. It's like, right, and then I'm thinking like, we're either gonna get RPG'd or we're gonna die. This looks like we're gonna die or something like that, you know. And come down, we end up landing, and we literally land like on a road in the middle of this like random village. And I'm like, oh dang, this isn't good. And all the locals start coming out like with goats and shit, you know, and like, you know, there's people riding around in like pickup trucks with like machine guns on the back of them. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, this isn't good. This isn't a good situation to be in. I was like, what do we do? Where's our ride? Where's our people? Where do we go? And he's like, man, my job was to get you here. They should have been here by now. Just stand by. And he's like, worst case to worst, we just hop back on the plane and we get in the sky. And I was like, oh, okay. So in the distance, we see the Land Cruisers roll in, and these guys pop out. And they're all like tactical, you know what I'm saying? Like cargo pants, beard, baseball hat, all that shit. And they're like, hey, what's up? Are you guys the guys? And we're like, are you guys the guys? Who are you? And he's like, who are you? And I'm like, are we supposed to give like some sort of passcode? And he's like, nah, I'm just fucking with you. We know who you are.
Shit. I was like, what?
And I'm like, okay. And they're like, get in the truck. And we're like, wait, how do we know? And it's like, your mission number is this, whatever. I'm like, okay, yeah. So hop in the truck. And this guy's like, okay, for whatever reason, if we start getting attacked, grab the M4. You know what to do. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, thanks, you know? Good.
Yeah.
What a welcome this is, you know? And I'm like, we're just rolling through.
I'm not in guitar anymore.
And we're just like rolling through, right? And there's like, it's crazy. Like, it's like a clay village, like an adobe village.
Yep.
I think this place has like the largest mud mosque. It's like a clay mosque, yeah.
That's interesting.
It's like the second biggest city in Niger. Get to the base. The base is like machine guns, barbed wire everywhere, right? We get in, it's just tense. And then the living conditions were just tents and cots.
So you slept on a cot?
Cot, yeah.
How was that?
It's uncomfortable, man. It's uncomfortable. I was like, I wish I had my air mattress. I definitely don't have my memory foam mattress. Anyway, so slept on the cot, right? And, eat the MREs, all that stuff. And then you wake up the next day and they're like, all right, this is what we got to do. We got to my job was like pretty much emergency water source. We have like this water system that we set up and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay. And then everybody has like their own specialty, and we start like pretty much building the base and prepping it so it's a little bit more sustainable to have so they start building an actual like runway, and then that way we can do stuff. That's it. That's all I'll say. But yeah, but it was interesting because there was literally nothing to do. We had like a rec tent, and in the rec tent was like a small table and it's like board games, like one TV that everybody watched, or if somebody was playing like video games, everybody just watched that guy play video games on this like small little TV. It was just, and then
That's
workout.
Like a real deployment.
Workout, yeah, and then like our workout equipment was like in the middle of the desert, so it was in the Sahara, and it wasn't inside anything. It was just like on this pad, so you like picked up the weights and they're just like like they're super hot. You're just like yeah, it was interesting.
I remember getting those phone calls, but you had a little bit of some of your internet worked out there.
We had internet like through a satellite, but it was like you'd send a message and then it would, which is, I feel like that's kind of spoiled in comparison to, it's definitely spoiled in comparison to what the guys, when the war kicked off, you don't get any internet, what I'm saying? So like, you send a message and then like you wait like 10 minutes and then it's like, hey, I love you. Like that message goes through. You're like, oh, thank God it's sent. And then you're like, I'll just leave my phone in this position right here and maybe I'll be able to load a message, like one message of the many that I might get, hopefully. So they would just come slow.
I remember feeling that way, sending you messages, just being like, well, I hope it goes through. And then it was like, when it went through, I'd be like, yes. And then it was just like, that was it, like for the rest of the day, because you just knew that like I just knew I probably wasn't going to get to talk to you because you couldn't really call. Like sometime, like I remember the first time you called me and you had like a calling card, I was like, oh shit, this is crazy. So then for me, it was like, just, like doing your own thing, because we were, long distance anyways, but then it was just like, oh, like now I just can't even talk to him. So it was like, not that I was waiting by the phone, but it was almost like waiting by the phone and being, like looking forward and hoping that your phone's going to light up with this foreign number, because that it's him calling and you just want to know that he's okay and you just want to hear his voice, and even if it's for like 5 minutes and that's it, and it like makes your whole day.
Yeah, it was trippy. It was trippy, the phone card thing. It was like throwback, like what you used to do. Well, my parents used to do it like going to Mexico. So it wasn't
really?
All the time. So, but it wasn't, so it's not, I knew how to use a calling card, but for a lot of guys there, they didn't know. And they were just like, how do I use this? And then like, you're at these like little phones, right? And you just have a little partition up, and the guy next, you can hear the guy's like, it's like prison, like the guy's conversation next to you. He's like arguing with his wife. He's like, you're spending too much money. Like it's just, he's going off. He's going off. We're just like, oh man, like hang in there, buddy.
Yeah. I was like, hey, did you see my Mariah Carey I love you snap I sent with the cat filter?
I'm like, no, because that would have took 2 years to load.
Yeah. So, wow. Even though I think it's really great that you got the opportunity to not only like go from, we can say like pack off, right? You can say that. Or not only going from like Asia, but like to Europe as well. And and like you said, like it's a different career when you leave the States versus if you stay. And you've had so many interesting experiences, and they're only going to grow from here.
I hope so. Yeah. So, yep, that's pretty much my Air Force story in a nutshell.
And tell us, I don't think we've ever officially like said what is next. I think we've like casually talked about it, but like we've never gone into details like what is next for you.
Oh, like the next move?
Yes.
I think we did, yeah.
For your
and
career.
Be like a Air Force recruiter. Go to school in like this year. Moving to Denver for the Air Force recruiting thing. Which like Denver's like a super Air Force-y city also. There's like a base and stuff like that. The academy, Air Force Academy's there. So it's going to be interesting. Yeah.
Tell us though what it means to you to have this opportunity to become a recruiter.
Honestly, I really wanted to do it in Stockton. So I wanted to do it in Stockton to like give people a chance to do something positive with their life, right? To help somebody out, kind of like me, that was like in the same situation. I wasn't able to get to Stockton, obviously. And maybe that's like maybe that's like not where I needed to be at that point in my life. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I mean, maybe that option is still not off the table. But yeah, so now I get to, I guess, help people join the Air Force and like give them like a real perspective or. Yeah, like not bullshit anybody about like joining the Air Force. Just try to be a good recruiter, be truthful, and like do that. So
I'm excited for you. I think that I know it's like a conversation we've had for so long, and it's just so interesting how people see things in life, right? They're like, oh, like they always come with the bad, like it's like if it's something like you have to kind of be in the military to understand, but like it's this, Abe's like really downplaying it. So let me just put it out there. So you don't just say, hey, I'm going to be a recruiter. Like you are picked. And even now in today's Air Force, like all the numbers are, like are low on certain jobs. And so this has become a job where you get like every year you get, right? Each individual in the Air Force gets reviewed if they can apply for like one of 4 what they call special jobs. And this is one of them. But even from that, even from just saying that, they're still not going to just throw you into the job. Like Abe had to go through levels of, what's the word, of a chain of command where
you just have to get vetted by like a bunch of people. You have to get vetted by like supervisors, your bosses, and then like you have to like go see the person in the enlisted person in charge of the base to paint a picture.
And that's pretty high up there.
It's up there, and you have to get like there. Usually, if like your commander and like everybody else has vetted off on you, she should, but like you still have to go do a face-to-face interview and all this stuff and like see if you get it. Then it goes up and, they kind of see if they want to let you out of your career field to get this job or get this opportunity. And then
because it is an opportunity.
Yeah, it is an opportunity.
Like it's a big deal. Like it's not just like it's not
you don't just like raise your hand and do it. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's going to be interesting. I don't like to hype it up, but yeah, I'm pretty happy. It's actually something that I've wanted to do for a long time. So
if somebody would have told airmen first class Farias that he would be doing this today, you know.
I'd believe it. I'd be like, hell yeah. That's because it's one of the things that I've wanted to do, honestly, since I joined the Air Force, is like to be a recruiter. Because I was like, that's like an awesome job to help people make something more. Like, it's like a super direct impact. Like, you're taking this kid out of maybe like the situation that he's in, or that he wants to get out, or, you know, help him out in his career. Like, very, very like super big impact, like direct impact, and like help him start his life pretty much. So that to me is like pretty fulfilling. It's like one of the more fulfilling things that I think especially being in the Air Force and like mentoring people and mentoring airmen, it's one of the more fulfilling things that it's a very fulfilling thing. Just that's it. It is.
Of course.
To help people out and like help them do the things that they want to do, whether it's like inside the military or outside the military. So,
well, we're proud to see you who you are today. Like, this is turning into a personal conversation. Right. And on that note, we will be ending today's episode. No, seriously though, we're super excited, and thanks for coming back on and sharing your Air Force story. I hope it encourages all our other listeners who are in the military as well to join us and share their story, because everyone has a story. So whether you're in the military or you're not, but to me, like, it's like my favorite thing to hear, like, people's story, like with the military, like what you thought before, what you thought during, and who you are now, and what your career's been like. So you guys, thank you so much for listening. We're back with you guys. We will catch up with you all next week. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at the Collective Journey Podcast. And we will see you guys, or talk to you guys next week. Courtney and Abe signing out.
And I still haven't forgot about the stickers. I'm working on it.
Okay. All right, guys. Thanks for listening.